All right, so integrating science and spirituality, that's really been a thing that everyone's been interested in, and it's really just a language issue that spirituality and philosophy have been talking about, different types of, spiritual concepts for centuries. And of course, it's just a different language to what the science language that we've been using. And it's only really until recent times that the ability of people to get access to quantum physics and quantum mechanics, which is the best form of science, which we can use to understand spiritual concepts, because spirituality is, in essence, an area which can't be measured by any conventional detection devices that we currently have in science, because it's based on a interdimensional scalar type of energy form, which exists in different dimensions of consciousness. And we simply don't have technology that can quantify that particular energy type. This is the type of energy that Tesla used when he was using, he developed his free energy source, which was the electric scalar wave. And what we're tapping into with our more spiritual, higher dimensional energies is more the magnetic scalar waves. And so these were even unknown to Tesla, or that he wasn't particularly interested in them because he was using the electric scalar waves. So let's get into it. So what are we? Are we just a bunch of lumps of tissues and meat and organs and tissues and bones and nerves? Or are we more? These tissues and organs, of course, are made up of cells, and these cells are composed of molecules. The molecules are composed of atoms. So what are atoms made up of? Atoms are made up of subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons. But what actually makes up these subatomic particles? And lo and behold, what we find is that through quantum physics and mechanics, we find that everything is a waveform. Everything is a energy frequency, which then interacts with different energy fields, and that then allows the expression of information in a different state of energy, such as the energy form of matter, which is a form of energetic waveform that appears to us as being solid, such as physical matter. So due to our appearance and our limitations of seeing energy, we can only really see energies that have this low frequency based expression of matter, physical matter. But if we have higher sensory perceptions, then we would be able to see and feel and interact with a whole range of other different energetic sources and forms of energy. And so that's where we need to develop our understanding that how quantum physics basically has validated the presence of an underlying quantum field of energy, which is the creative source of all matter. And so we as humans exist as a manifestation, a holographic projection of the quantum field, which is a manifestation of different energetic fields and frequencies, which are then being expressed in this particular low frequency form of matter. You've probably heard of the 0-point field as another name of the quantum field. Essentially, this is the basis of all creation, where the interaction of consciousness then as a source of energy and information results in the expression of, or the creation of matter. And of course, our old mate Einstein was a little bit ahead of the game. He says that everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So we see a sort of like a blend of some of these spiritual concepts of attracting energies into your life and being on the right frequency, because what happens is that a frequency is simply a wavelength that allows you to access a certain amount of information or data. And we use this every day in our technologies, where we access radio and television stations, we tune into specific frequencies that carry the channels and the radio station frequencies, which allow us to listen to music, watch TV, use our phones. In fact, most energetic technologies use specific frequencies as a carrier to allow the transfer of data and information, same as our internet. And so ultimately, we as individuals are like a radio transmitter and receiver. We are a quantum device that's capable of generating specific energy and frequencies. And as we shoot out that frequency with our thoughts and emotions and our feelings, we tune into a particular data stream of information. And that then becomes our perception of reality. So in a sense, we're creating our reality based on the frequencies that we actually emit into the quantum field, which then results in a crystallization of those frequencies into a form of matter, which we can then see as evidence that of our relationship in this dimension. So Albert was obviously trying to get us to get on board with the frequency medicines. And so let's continue, because as we look at how we manifest in this particular universe, we see that there's many different dimensions of consciousness, which forms the basis of this quantum field. And we'll talk more about these in a minute, but basically there is a divine source of energy, which at the highest dimension of consciousness, which then basically layers down through 12 different layers down to the physical realm, where our physical body is in a three-dimensional form. And if you can think of it, that these energies are like a step-down transformer that is allowing the energy to be processed in a way that it can finally be expressed in matter as a human. And so simply our body couldn't control or be able to utilize the highest 12th dimensional energy. It would simply be like a light bulb that just blew out. We have to basically go through a process of raising our frequencies so that we can match the higher dimensional forms of energy. And that way we can handle the energy and we can access the data from those dimensions. So this diagram shows that the energy basically comes down through the dimensions into our energy fields. The energy fields feed into what we call the chakras, which are these vortexes on either side of the body. They suck the energy basically in from each dimensional layer into a central column, where it's then distributed out through the meridians, the acupuncture meridians you've probably heard of. This is where the energy gets taken from a scalar form of energy into a more electromagnetic form of energy. And then finally into the cells through the nervous system and into the DNA. This is a picture of the DNA. The DNA basically acts as an antenna to receive frequencies and energy in the form of electromagnetic and scalar frequencies, depending on what dimension of consciousness the person is tuned to. Their DNA has different energetic frequencies that it will pick up the different dimensional layers of data and energy. So it's an amazing integrated miracle, the fact that our body and our being is essentially a form of energy, which is now manifesting in a physical form to experience itself. The body is a way of experiencing all different aspects of consciousness. And ideally, the feelings that we want to generate in our body are feelings of love and joy and abundance and peace and harmony, as opposed to anger and frustration and fear. So this is the ultimate purpose, to experience the divine nature of our spiritual source in the physical body. And that's really the end game as to consciousness and the experience of life. So here we see that the different energies of fear versus love. Fear is a very contracted form of energy which creates anxiety and other types of negative emotions. It causes the energy field to be restricted and shrinks. And therefore the energy is very, basically we cut ourselves off from the divine flow of energy that's flowing through us and that's coming down. Whereas if we go into a state of love and gratitude and joy, we start to access far more greater energetic bands of consciousness. And so we get this abundance of energy that comes flowing through us and creating health and vitality and the joyous experience of love and contentment. On the left here, we see that there are a couple of different ways that we can describe how frequencies work, where we can look at what we call constructive versus destructive interference. So here we have two waves, two frequencies, which are perfectly aligned with their peaks and troughs. And when they are perfectly aligned, we call this a coherence, a form of coherence. And what we see is that the two frequencies add together to form one large beneficial frequency, which is having a positive effect. So let's think of this, that this bottom frequency here is us, and we're generating the feeling of love. And that then is in alignment with the soul, which is a six-dimensional aspect of ourself. And the soul is in a state of consciousness which is permanently in connection to the spirit, which is the source of love. So when we connect to our soul, which is always connected to our spirit, these loving frequencies join together and they form one large, uniform, coherent frequency of love, which has an amazing feeling and makes us feel so wonderful. Whereas if we look at fear, we see, let's say that fear is this particular frequency here. And then what happens is that we can then neutralize fear by generating the feeling of love, and that love will then match up to be the opposite of the wavelength of fear. So we see that as this wave goes up, the wave of fear goes up and down. The wave of love is the exact opposite. It's in an out of phase, 180 degrees out of phase, which leads to the neutralization of the fear. And that's called destructive interference. We've neutralized a negative energy and we've made it neutral, meaning into a non-reactive form. And that is a form of coherence as well. So that's basically the idea of how we transform negative energies with the opposite energy, which is typically love. Love can take so many different shapes and forms to be used to neutralize negative energies. And finally, down here we have, many different waves and frequencies that are all over the place. They're all out of form. They're not lined up. They're not coherent. And so they cancel out each other in a piecemeal way. The result is that you get a very low amplitude frequency, which has a low amount of energy and a low amount of power. And that's, of course, representative perhaps of our monkey mind, where we're generating so many uncoherent thought patterns, which basically cancel and neutralize each other out, so that we end up with a very confused, low-powered mental result. And that's what we would call incoherent energy forms. So that gives you a summary of just how these frequencies can actually form together to form higher beneficial frequencies when they're perfectly in alignment. They can be used to neutralize negative frequencies, or we can just create confusion by having too many unaligned, incoherent frequencies, which create confusion. Okay, so now the next slide here takes us into the 12 dimensions of consciousness, which Burkhard Heim It was a physicist who was quite influential in developing the time waver technology with Marcus Schmieke. His concept is that he unified consciousness into the 12 dimensions of physics and quantum physics. And he basically established the connection between the lower dimensions, which would include our physical body, our first, second, and third dimensions of our physical body, with the fourth dimension, which is our emotional astral body, and then our fifth dimension, which is our mental body, and then our sixth dimensional form of consciousness, which is our soul body. And that basically is like a cutoff period to where 7th, 8th, 9 up to 12 are more the higher dimensional spiritual realms of energy. Whereas the soul here acts as the go-between between the spirit, higher self, spiritual energies of divine love, go through the soul, which then distributes it down through the mind, through the emotions, and into the physical body. And so what we find is that most disease and dysfunction is due to a lack of this soul, divine soul energy penetrating through the fifth and the fourth dimensions, which is the mental and emotional dimensions, the astral realm. And so therefore the third dimensions and the second dimensions of our physical body are starved of this loving divine energy, and therefore we create dysfunction, disharmony, and disease. So that's why we need to have an understanding of how energy medicine works, because once we know what's causing the blockages, then we can neutralize and transform those blockages to allow the energies to transform and return things back into our soul connection to our body and our minds. So the main causes of energy blockages, what are they? Well, they're internal and external. The internal ones are basically our own self-generated, ego-based mind concepts, our beliefs, our traumas, our fears, our negative emotions. These are the frequencies that we're putting out into the world. These are the frequencies that Einstein's referring to, that, you know, whatever frequency you put out there is what you'll receive back. And that's basically a standard quantum physics concept, that you will receive that information and reality back at you. So we need to be under a much higher level of awareness of consciousness to figure out, well, if we're suffering all of these traumas and fears and negative emotions, then, you know, we're the ones generating them. We're the ones that are responsible. We have to go back and take responsibility and start to do the work to unravel this trauma complex that we've established as our ego's behavior. Now, that behavior may have been just something you've generated through trauma or through belief systems that you've adopted from your family, from your society, or it could be from a past life karmic relationship that you had with other people. This can that can be also involved with karmic vows, karmic agreements, karmic curses even, which are quite damaging to your energy structures. So all of these negative emotions, for instance, and karmic vows and curses, they basically damage your energy structures, your energy fields, your chakras, your meridians, all become damaged or, in a sense, blocked. And so we have to recognize, how can we unblock those? And then, of course, there's the external forces that cause these blockages as well. These particularly relate to things like what we call soul contracts or soul cords. These are where, whenever we have a relationship, and depending on the extent and the type of the relationship, we have energy cords, which is a connection where some of our soul particles actually go into the energy field of another person. And our soul particles stay with that person, and their soul particles stay within us. So basically there is an exchange of soul particles within different people, so that if that person is having a bad day, if they're having a lot of anger or frustration or pain, then those frequencies will immediately be triggered within us, because we have their soul particles within us. And so their soul particles basically are triggering reactions of negative emotions and pain and so forth. And we're not even the ones generating it. It's from somebody else that we're energetically connected to. So in a sense, we're a surrogate for that particular person. Now, unless you know what's going on, unless you know that you can detect these cords and you can transform and dissolve these cords, you really are getting a massive amount of negative influence, which is, in a way controlling you without your awareness. There's other types of external negative attachments and implants, psychic cords, which are less, psychic cords don't involve any soul particle exchange. These are psychic cords which essentially are just penetrating into your energy field, whereas a soul contract or a soul cord will go into the individual chakras that you have, which is a more deeper connection. We have ancestral genetic lineage as an issue. We have the influence of fifth dimensional dark archetypes. We have planetary influences such as the moon, such as Jupiter and Pluto and Neptune going crazy at the moment in retrograde, the moon amplifying everything. We have the influence of mass consciousness, geopathic stress due to energetic fields and underground water. And then, of course, we have environmental exposure to technology, 5G, wireless technologies, microwave technologies, all this external radio wave interference. So all of these things create an effect which is pretty much like this. We're living in a spider web of energy, and most of it we're completely unaware of how it's affecting us. And one of these cords might be the fact that we're connected to a friend or a relative, and they're putting some of their energy into us, and that's triggering reactions in us because we have traumas and fears and beliefs that are also in the same frequency as what they have. So if we have the same problem within us and we have an energetic cord to somebody else, then that forms a frequency resonance that allows that other person to affect us. And so this whole concept of resonance is where we need to clear the blockages so that we can raise our frequency to much higher dimensional, six-dimensional frequencies above fear, above anger, above suffering, basically. So we can fly above all of that and be free of it. And essentially that's what we're trying to do. Here on the left, we have the old operating system, which is based on fear. It causes distortions, blockages, and stagnation of energy in the energy field, in the chakras and the meridians, resulting in various pains and diseases, increased sensitivity. Whenever you start to get these blockages, you also start to become more easily affected by electromagnetic frequencies that are negative as well. Let's say, for instance, your energy goes down, your immune system goes down, you get a particular parasitic infection, okay, or a viral infection. That particular, that's in the physical body, right? Now, what happens is that these higher dimensions of consciousness, everything has to happen in those higher dimensions in order for it to happen in the lower dimensions. As what is above is below. So if we're manifesting a virus or a parasitic infection, what does that mean? Did that actually happen in our emotional body, in our mental body? How did that parasitic and viral infection manifest as a thought, as an emotion? What type of energetic higher dimensional frequencies are present in our mind and in our emotions, which is essentially allowing that to happen in the physical? And so we can't just expect that we can treat the physical body with, herbs and vitamins and everything else to kill a parasite, to kill a virus. That's helpful at that level, but it's not actually treating the mental belief or the fear that, and the emotion that created the parasitic energy, that created the viral energy in these other dimensions of consciousness. Does that make sense? We have to look at, we have to look at the cause, not just the physical result is the end effect. And our type of medicine is basically, if we're going to move ahead in the future of medicine, we need to go further and further up the stream of causality to look at these higher dimensions of consciousness, which set the stage for the development of physical dysfunction. Here on the right, we see a person who's got a beautiful energetic field, who has strong flow of energy and light. They have a love-based system. They've been able to embody their soul. Their six-dimensional energy has come down and been embodied into their physical body. And that allows that high dimensional energy to flow through them and protect them. And it creates resistance to all other forms of negative energy, including viruses, parasites, electromagnetic frequencies, or whatever. So this is the end game. This is where we want to get to, because it basically means that we're healthy, we're vital, and we're protected from all this other crap that is basically attacking and affecting us. So this is the new love-based operating system. And what I say to people is that, look, once we can get your six-dimensional soul energy over 50% of in your body, if more than 50% of your soul can be embodied into your physical tissue, then you basically enter into this state where you now have a love-based unity consciousness, which is running your body and your energetic fields. So the key is to get to this 50%. Most people are currently running on 10% of their soul energy. So they've got 40% basically to clean out. And this is where the Healy can be very, very effective. From my testing and experience using it, it can actually help people get rid of a lot of these blockages and allow them to get up to 40% of their soul's embodiment into their physical tissues. Now, what that basically means is that they can start to feel energy in their body. They're not just a lump of meat or a lump of wood that can't feel anything. The lower down on the scale of soul embodiment, the less you are capable of feeling, the less you can actually experience the sensation of something, of love. In fact, you need to be basically hit with a lump of 3B2 in order to feel something. So this is a state of desensitization. So we're trying to get rid of this numbness, allow this, clear the blockages so that we can become sensitive to the energies, not only the negative, but the good energies, the loving energies that allow us to get up to this higher frequency of consciousness where we can embody, let's say if we can get to 40%, from what I've found is that most people that can embody 40% of their six-dimensional soul energy, that they are basically free of most physical disorders and disease. So within that realm of 40% and above, you start to be essentially disease-free. And then you keep going up in your soul evolution. Once you get over 50%, you now have, all of a sudden, it's like somebody switched the light on and you've got a broadband connection of loving energy coming into your body that you can feel and that you can use and that you can now want to give out to other people or invest into different projects, because you're running on a high quality broadband, divine, loving energy flow. So what happens when we disconnect from that divine loving flow, which is where I think basically most people are? We see that cells become sick. And here we have a picture of some sick cells based on a dark field microscopic analysis of red cells. And here we see healthy cells. Now, one of the things is that as the energy flows down through these dimensions, down into the chakras and the meridians, it goes into the cells. The cells become charged with energy, electrical energy. And the electrical energy is stored in the cell membranes. And a healthy cell membrane allows the accumulation of this electrical charge, which then can be sent through the cell like a battery. Every cell is like a battery. the energy flows through the cell, and as it flows through, those electrons start to stimulate the production of ATP, which is the chemical form of energy that our mitochondria make in order to drive all the cellular enzymatic functions that the cell uses at the physical level. So everything, if we keep working back up, it all turns into electricity, magnetics, scalar wave, and we keep going up into these divine areas of energy. So as the energy level decreases, the electrical charge in the cell decreases, the cell becomes inflamed, it becomes dysfunctional. We start to see changes in cell behavior, tumor cells, and ultimately the cellular death. And so this can all be prevented by simply getting rid of these upstream energetic blockages. Now, here we have a slide that talks about the benefit of microcurrent, which is what the Healer uses. The Healer uses a couple of different forms of energy. The first one is called microcurrent, which is a very low level of electrical current below the level of sensory perception, which is usually less than 500 microamps. But at that level, it's the level of electron flow that stimulates the cellular ATP production. And here we've seen various studies that show that you can increase ATP by 500% by simply pumping the cell with microcurrent. And so again, that makes a huge difference. Like if you think, who would like to have 500% more energy? I certainly would. So we can do that simply by running a low level of electrical current into our bodies. That immediately enhances the functionality of the cells. The cells then can increase their protein synthesis up to 70%. And protein synthesis is how the cell makes proteins in response to a particular stimulus, how the environment reacts, and it sends a signal through to the cell. The cell responds by duplicating some DNA, translating that into messenger RNA, and then it's sending out that messenger RNA into the cell where it can then result in peptide protein production. And then the cell can respond, can send out those proteins into the body to communicate with other cells at a chemical level. And amino acid transport, of course, can be increased in the cells just by using microcurrent. So these are all very important, but the key to remember is that it's not just energy that we're concerned about, it's the frequency of the energy. And these increases in ATP and protein synthesis, that is purely based on the microcurrent. It's not based on the frequency. When you add the appropriate frequencies to the microcurrent, then that becomes the secret to the universe. This is what Tesla found. He could tap into electric scalar waves, and he could select the right frequencies, then he could transmit energy anywhere he wanted. And of course, Albert was right on the money. Future of medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And so here's an example of this. This is a result of a study that I did in conjunction with Dr. Carolyn McMakin at the University of Sydney, where we did animal rats, we did mice studies where we induced inflammation by adding a particular inflammatory chemical to the ear of the mouse. And then we would measure the swelling in the mouse ear. And that is a reproducible pharmacological model for pain and inflammation that's used for the development of pharmaceutical drugs. So we thought, well, let's see if we can measure this using our frequencies, our microcurrent frequencies. So on the left here, we see this is the amount of inflammation that we were able to induce. And this is the amount of inflammation that happened after we treated the mice for 4 minutes prior to adding the chemical on their ear. Okay? And then 1 hour later, you measure the inflammatory response. So there was essentially a 70% reduction in the inflammatory response due to a 4-minute application of microcurrent frequencies. This frequency here was a combination of 40 hertz and 116. 116 represents the immune system. So we were basically creating an anti-inflammatory response in the immune system. And over here, slightly less of a response, about a 60% reduction in inflammation, where we used 40 hertz at 355 hertz, which 355 is the frequency of the skin. So between these two demonstrations, we were able to demonstrate the dramatic effect of frequency-specific microcurrent, and that if you don't have the right frequency, then nothing happens. You only get the benefit of the microcurrent. The microcurrent by itself is helpful, but it doesn't have any anti-inflammatory action at all. It simply helps the cell to become more functional. It doesn't have any anti-inflammatory effect whatsoever. It's purely due to the frequencies that we were able to create this powerful anti-inflammatory effect. And so, the Healy, health, well-being and balance, frequencies of life. This great new little device, as I said, has been a miniaturization of, this is how big it is, by the way, it's only tiny. Fits into your hand, and you connect it up. You can connect it up to your body with both leads, some microcurrent leads, or if you buy the resonance unit, then you can beam the frequencies directly into your energetic field without the use of leads. So let's have a look. We'll go through this disclaimer because Healy is a microcurrent medical device that's been cleared by the US Food and Drug Administration for the relief of acute and chronic arthritic pain and muscle soreness due to overexertion. Healy also has non-medical applications that use individualized frequencies to help balance your mind, body, and relieve stress. Always use Healy in accordance with its instructions for use. So each country has its own particular regulatory framework, and so we're just simply using this disclaimer to comply with the American, which is closest to Australia and New Zealand, basically. So Healy, it's a wearable microcurrent device. It offers 144,000 different frequencies in 120 different programs, which are designed to create bioenergetic balance and well-being in your body. In Germany, it's a grade 2 medical device where it's medically proven to help with anxiety, depression, migraines, fibromyalgia. It also supports insomnia, chronic pain, balancing emotions, hormones, stress, allergies, skin, and much more. So this is an allowable claim that is being used in Europe based on its classification as a grade 2 medical device in Germany. Okay, so as I mentioned before, because it's a offshoot of the time wave technology that had been around for nearly 15 years, there's over 80,000 doctors and healers and therapists that are using this technology. And now the Healy is making this available to the world through to the average end consumer. And that's an exciting thing because people can now take back their power, take back their responsibility of maintaining their own health for themselves and for their family and friends. Now, the Healy, what's unique about the Healy? It's the only device in the world that has an inbuilt quantum sensor. And this is the key difference. This is the key difference between the Healy, the time waver and the Healy and all other energetic frequency devices. Okay, it analyzes the energetic structures. Remember the 12-dimensional structure that we went through? So the Healy can analyze the 4th and 5th dimension of consciousness, which is something that is relatively difficult and not many devices, if any other devices, I believe, have effectively done that better than Healy. Healy has a quantum sensor which allows it to penetrate and access information and frequencies from the emotional and mental dimensions of consciousness. It allows you to do remote scanning of other people, of other plants and pets and organizations, and you can upload energetic signatures by imprinting it back into the device, where you can then send those frequencies. Let's say it could be an essential oil that you particularly like that has a beneficial effect. We can upload the energetic signature of that essential oil and play it back into our energetic field for its balancing effect. That's something that can be done by the resonance unit and not the other smaller units. So, okay, Healy is for everyone. Basically, it's improves your current health, state of mental and spiritual, emotional function, reduces worry and fear, confusion. These are really the day-to-day things that Healy becomes so fantastic, because everyone wants to get out of pain, but a lot of the pain is due to constant emotional and mental destructive thoughts. And if we can have something that helps us to deal with those, helps us to uh, neutralize those thoughts, helps us to become aware of those thoughts before we actually have them, then that's going to enhance the evolution of our consciousness, so that we can overcome those the causative reasons why we have these problems. It balances your brain waves and your nerves, induces much deeper sleep and REM cycles. It increases your energy, physical energy, mental energy, removes brain fog, allows you to have increased focus clarity during your work or in the office, or even at play or in the gym. Overall, you basically become more aware of what's going on inside you. And that increased awareness allows you to then expand your consciousness to become more intuitive and have a greater level of discernment, so that you can start selecting the right emotions and thoughts, as opposed to going into a reactive default mechanism where you're just running an old program to defend your own ego bullshit that you've been playing in your life because you were traumatized when you were a kid. So, sooner or later, you have to wake up to the fact that you're creating all of these problems. You're the one creating the problems. You're the one that is the only one that can unravel it and transform it. The Healy is a really wonderful tool that's going to help you to get out of your brain fog, get out of your trauma bag story, and help you to see things in a clear way, more intuitively, so that you can raise your consciousness and raise your own vibration. Now, if you can raise your own vibration and consciousness, then that's going to assist everyone else around you to raise their consciousness and their vibration. So this is the thing. You don't have to go out and save the world. Just start saving yourself. Start getting rid of your own mental crap and your own unresolved emotions. Start changing the story of your bullshit, emotional childhood stories of trauma. That's not to say that things didn't happen. It just means to say that you've now written a story which you've developed a whole behavioral program which is now keeping you in a prison. And until you wake up to that, until you take ownership of it, then you'll never be free of it. And so the Healy now is there to help you to clarify yourself, to zone in and have greater levels of discernment and intuition. We've discussed that. So basically, this diagram shows in your energy field, you've got all these stored emotions, fears, other types of ancestral genetic lineage, things that have been passed down through your DNA. You've got EMF blockages. You've got some type of karmic curse or cord or karmic vow. All of these things accumulate at different dimensions of your consciousness, blocking the flow of energy into your body, which then is the physical expression of your life. It's the monitor that tells you, hey, this stuff is definitely wrong. Something fishy is going on. And now you need to know it's happening in these other layers, other dimensions of consciousness. That's where the secrets are. That's where they're held. We need to clear them and transform them so that the energy can allow the divine six-dimensional energy to come into the body, the goal being at least 50% embodiment of the soul. Okay, so as I said before, the difference of the Healy is the Kozyrev mirror. Time Waver basically embarked on a project where they spent nearly 5 years and $30 million to miniaturize the technology that they had in their big clinical units to form the apps and the units which we are now using as the Healy. I mentioned Marcus Schmicker. He's the inventor of the the technology. And Nuno Nino is a Portuguese therapist who's been working in energy medicine for over 25 years, has an incredible success rate in treating patients. And he developed a whole range of different frequencies called the gold frequencies, which have been implemented into the time waiver system. So this is quite a unique, extraordinary meeting of the minds, led to the incorporation of all Nuno Nino's clinical experience into the database of frequencies which could be used in the time waiver Healy device. So the secret behind the quantum sensor, Nikola Kozyrev, he was a famous Russian physicist, and basically he established a physical theorem of how time itself was a force that was capable of bending space. And through his work, they developed a method of forming a cylinder or a mirror, which is based on a particular design. And this design they called the Kozyrev mirror because it basically does two things. The first thing it does, it protects the whoever's inside it or whatever's inside it from the electromagnetic field of the Earth. And we find that the electromagnetic field of the Earth creates is a holder of so many different distorting frequencies that you can't actually really tap into higher dimensions of consciousness until you filter out a lot of this noise. And so the Kozyrev mirror filters out the noise from the Earth's magnetic field, but then it generates scalar waves which allow the person's consciousness to penetrate into higher dimensions of consciousness. And a number of amazing experiments have been done, which are all quite mind-boggling, which allow people, because these things can be made to be quite large, where people go inside them and they experience states of high consciousness where they can transmit information telepathically to people on the other side of the planet. And they can change all sorts of energetic phenomena by simply being connected to these higher dimensions of consciousness, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth dimension of consciousness. So this Kozyrev mirror is basically built into the little Healy. It's built in there, and all of the electrical circuits go into the Kozyrev mirror, which allows it to project scalar waves which penetrate the higher dimensions of consciousness. That's the whole thing that makes the Healy and the time waiver revolutionary and different to any other device that's currently available. Otherwise, it does essentially, most things that other devices do. It provides microcurrent, it treats the physical, it treats the etheric layer, but hardly any other technical or electronic technology has ever been able to reach and penetrate and access data from the higher dimensions of the emotion and mental dimensions. So the way it does that is that it looks at your you as being an energetic signature. It takes and measures your energetic signature. It then projects that into the higher dimensions of your own consciousness, where it detects specific distortions and abnormalities, which are then compared to a database of frequencies where we look for specific resonance between the frequencies and the energetic distortions. And then that results in a level of resonance. And those frequencies are then classified as the neutralizing resonant frequencies, which are then sent out of the unit into your body, into your energy field. The Healy Gold unit is the lowest cost unit. It's here it says it's 417 euros, but it's essentially about 800 Australian dollars. So whatever that translates into New Zealand dollars, David, I'm not quite sure the price.
Just under a grand, about 1,000 New Zealand, just under 1,000 now.
Okay. So the cheapest, the lowest priced Healy unit is just around about the $1,000 mark. This is what we call the Nuno Nino gold cycle.
That's about 900 New Zealand dollars.
Okay, so that's better. Saved $100 straight away. So the frequencies programs in the gold cycle, they cover the detoxification aspects of environmental toxins. It looks at the immune system. It looks at the physical balance of the organs and systems. It goes into emotional balance, goes into mental and energetic balance, relaxation, pain, and you get to choose another program from the selection of the programs, plus another program called the Deep Cycle program, which is again another detoxification and balancing program. So that's the bottom unit. That uses microcurrent, and you plug the unit in to the leads, you connect it to your body, and then you select from a menu which one of these particular programs you want to run. So let's say you're feeling, pretty stressed out. You would then select the being, the emotional balance section. If you've got pain, you would select the pain program, and so on and so forth. So generally, you would run a series of these, or you would run the whole gold cycle on a regular basis, so that all areas of this is being dealt with in your physical body and your emotional, mental spheres. The other units, there's 3 other units, and they basically each have increasing levels of programs. The holistic health, again, that works out to be about 1,500, I think it was, Australian. Let me see here. Yeah. So that's just over 1,500 Australian. The Holistic Health Plus is about 2,300 Australian.
1,700. That's about 2,500 New Zealand.
Yeah, okay. So 2,300 is 2.5 New Zealand. The Healy Resonance is 3,800 Australian. So
that's probably about $4,000 New Zealand.
So approximately 4,000 in New Zealand dollars.
Or maybe just over between 4,000 and 4,100.
Right, okay. So the basic difference here is that going up in price, you get access to increasing numbers of other programs. So the Holistic Health has a pain and psyche program, which looks at other types of mental dysfunctions and mood dysfunction, as well as physical pain. Bioenergetic Balance 1 and 2, that covers so many different things, it's not funny, but a lot of basic organ system stuff. So just about all organ systems appear, so liver, kidney, organs, heart, thyroid, pituitary, all of these organ systems and glandular systems that need support will come up in here. The mental balance relates to stress and emotional reactions. Meridians 1 and 2 basically cover all of the meridians. Sleep is one of the most popular programs because the level of sleep dysfunction in the population is incredible. Skin related issues, and so that represents the next unit up. And then we have 6 more programs for the Holistic Health Plus, which includes learning and fitness. Learning basically for anyone that's wanting to really process a lot of information. Students, people learning new skills, people basically trying to, take in a lot of data, can accelerate their learning process very rapidly. And even with kids, that have got dyslexia and other types of autistic features, can get dramatic improvements within their learning process by using that. And fitness relates to improved fitness, running fitness, and enhancing fat loss, muscle recovery, enhancing muscle performance. Job is pretty straightforward. It comes up quite a lot in people because when you do a scan, most people are running around chasing money, trying to pay their bills, working their ass off. And so their job creates an immense amount of stress. So in here, you have a whole lot of mental exhaustion, adrenal exhaustion, a whole range of other types of exhaustion type issues which appear under the job. program. Beauty is pretty straightforward. If you want to look wonderful like David, you know, we could run the beauty program on a daily basis. And then there's the chakra program, which is critical for our processing of all of these emotions and negative energies. Protection program. This is a key one because at the moment we're being bombarded by electromagnetic smog, 5G, wireless, microwaves, radio waves. The protection program has individual programs for EMF smog. It also has individual programs for external pathogens. It also has programs for geopathic stress, and it has programs for planetary bodies, so it's astrological stress. So it's one of those things that you would be running a lot at the current moment because of the whole, you know, COVID pandemic fear system that's been integrated into society, along with the astrological, you know, dramification of the whole thing. And then the Healy resonance, it doesn't have any more programs. So it has the same amount of programs as all of these. The Holistic Health Plus contains all the programs. The resonance contains all of these previous programs, but the resonance does a number of things that all of the other units don't do. So firstly, it does a scan of the energy structures to detect the distortions, okay? Whereas the other units only scan for the selection on the menu that you have chosen, all right? So this is a key difference. The resonance unit will scan all of the programs in your energy field, and it will then tell you what are the top 5 that need to be supported. It will then provide you with the top 5 frequency programs to bring those systems back into balance. The other smaller units, the cheaper units, do not scan all of the frequencies. They only scan the individual program that you select on the menu. So it's a little bit more hit and miss. Whereas the resonance unit is like a practitioner. It's basically doing it, scanning everything and saying, oh, you know, here it is over here. There's a problem here. And that may be somewhere where you completely wouldn't expect that problem to be, if that makes sense. It recommends the most relevant frequency programs for the treatment. And then it broadcasts the frequencies directly into the energy fields, whereas the other units can only send the treatments via the leads, which are attached to the unit. They can only transmit the frequencies via microcurrent via the leads. The resonance unit can send it directly into your energetic fields without any wires and any connection. And because of that, you can do remote healing to a person anywhere on the planet when they're, just because you've loaded up their frequency details into the device, into the app, you put in the photograph of the patient, you put in their details, and that creates an energetic signature that allows you to do a scan of that person and to send the healing frequencies no matter where they are on the planet. None of the other devices can do that. The final thing that the resonance unit does is that you can use the resonant unit to upload and imprint other compounds, nutrients, essential oils, or other compounds back into your device, which you can then send out and send it into your energetic fields as an ongoing beneficial treatment for yourself. So that's what we call imprinting. Okay, now normally to have these features, you would be paying more than $20,000 to $30,000 in a high-end clinical-based frequency device. But you're getting it all for, what did we say it was? About $4,000 New Zealand. So it's incredibly good, amazing, mind-blowingly good value for what it does. It's simply got no other comparison. There's nothing else on the market that can compete to do what it does anywhere for this level of pricing. So it's a lay down misère as far as I'm concerned. And as an experienced clinician and researcher in this area for so many years, it's brought me out of retirement to basically lend my stamp of approval and authorization of its effectiveness. My main interest in the product of the Healy is that it gets people up to about 40% of their soul integration process. In other words, it raises their frequency of consciousness from, say, 10% up to 40%. If used regularly, the changes that occur in a patient over time will result in that level of soul, six-dimensional soul energy integration. After 40%, it's up to you. You have to start doing the work, the deep energy clearing work yourself. The Healy will only take you so far, but that's a hell of a long way compared to where most people are. I can assure you of that. How would you like to have a 300% increase in the consciousness of the planet? That's where I think the Healy could take us. So be a part of the solution, and be a part of that process. The Healy uses different applications on the phone. There's two main applications. There's the Resonance app, and then there's just the standard Healy app, which is used with the 3 smaller units. The biggest unit, the Resonance unit, has its own app, which allows you to do the scanning and the aura analysis. The aura analysis is fantastic in that it provides you with specific feedback information as to what is actually the cause of the blockage. In the other smaller units, you can do a chakra scan, but it doesn't tell you any, it doesn't give you any information. This aura analysis gives you a list of the actual problems so that your consciousness now can identify where the problem is, and you can now start to work on it. So this is a very huge beneficial feature of the resonant unit compared to the other ones, where you can treat your chakras, but it doesn't actually tell you what's wrong with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a big distinction. So, all right, basically the cost versus the value is always a value perception. Without health, there is no wealth. You know, that is our highest level of wealth. The expansion of our consciousness, the experience of love, the ability to give and receive love. How do you put a price on that? That's the true wealth. But first of all, we want to get people well, get them out of their pain, because you can't have a loving, expressed, satisfying life when you're in pain. So first step, get out of pain. Second step, get to the cause of pain, which is creating the disease. Once you're out of that, once you get up to 40% of your soul integration, then you can move on and start becoming the divine sovereign being of freedom and love that you are, that your soul is ready and available to provide you with that level of freedom and that level of sovereign existence. Okay, so be part of the solution for the planet's sake. Let's start doing the deep work. Healy's there to help us. To recap, basically, everything is energy. You are energy. Everything that happens to you is because something happened in the energetic dimensions of consciousness. You're not a body with an energy field. You're an energy field with a body. The body is the last component of who you are. It accounts for 5% of who you are. 95% of you is energy. 5% is actually matter, a physical organism. Your cells require high dimensional frequencies and energies in order to be healthy. We need to get rid of the blockages that are blocking it in these higher 4th and 5th dimensions. This is the most powerful form of healing. All energy healing methods that have been used down through the centuries by different cultures and different shamanic processes are all using the same concepts of transforming dark negative frequencies and energies with high dimensional loving higher energies and frequencies that neutralize the negative frequencies. As Albert has obviously said, future of medicine is the medicine of frequencies. The Healy is the most advanced quantum healing technology available to mankind today. It has the ability to accurately identify your body's bioenergetic weakness and broadcast the treatment immediately in real time. So anytime, any day, you've got support. You can not only treat yourself, you can treat your friends and family by remote scanning and sending the treatment specifically to them using the resonance unit, which is why I promote the use of the resonance unit. It's the most expensive, but by far the most powerful because it does so many other things that the other smaller units don't do. So that's pretty much the presentation. Let's take some questions. If you'd like to look at some of those questions, Dave, on the chat.
Yep. Hang on, just working out how to do that. So we had a few, one person asked, can Healy cure cancer?
Okay. So when we went through this presentation, we basically came to the, hang on a minute. What happened? Here you go. Back on. Can you see me?
Can see you clearly, yep.
Okay. So when we went through the presentation, we looked at how that everything that we are breaks down to a cellular level, which breaks down to energy. So we need to start getting away with using terms like medical labels. As soon as we start using labels to classify things, we basically start to manifest the energy of whatever it is that our frequency is. Does that make sense? So the more we label things, the more we make a judgment and we label something, the more we tap into the data that that thing is providing. So the more we actually acknowledge the existence and the reality of something, the more of the energy we get from it. So this is a problem with modern medicine in that rather than saying, oh, you know, I've got the C word, you could say, I've got some cellular dysfunction that's affecting me. And it's affecting my intestine or my colon. I have cellular dysfunction in my ovary. Right? Now, this is a much better way of basically communicating anything to a patient or person because it doesn't download all of the negative information and frequencies associated with the disease state. So first thing is we want to get away from using any form of medical labeling wherever we can and start expressing it in a form of say, okay, well, I've got some dysfunction in my thyroid gland, or I've got some dysfunction in my lung. Okay, these sorts of things are much more useful. And as we discussed, it's all energy. So once we start treating the energy imbalances, then you can say that across the board, there's going to be some improvement. Now, is that going to cure everyone? Remember what I said, that if you get up to 40% of your soul integration, that's the magic number. If you're down at 5%, then, you know, you've got to get up to 40% and you've got to do the work. Now, the Healy will help you. But, you know, if you've got cellular dysfunction, which we refer to as, you know, the C word, that typically happens when your soul energy is below 5%. So you're already on rock bottom. There's only one way to go, isn't there? Up. And as you go up, you get better. You feel better, you have more energy, you have less symptoms. And then as you break through and go up past the 50% mark, then you're basically on the home run, okay, as far as any type of physical disease manifestation.
Yeah. So the actual question was, would it help in cancer recovery? So you've answered that. Now, a couple of other good questions. One was, how do you download essential oils into it? And the person said if they're on the Australian Healy WhatsApp group, so if you could put that on there for them, that would be really helpful. I want to know how to download specific essential oil frequencies into the machine for you.
Yeah, that would probably require a specific recording of the process because it's too complicated to talk it through. But that's something that I can do, and we can post it onto the Healy, the Australian Healy group.
As a doTERRA practitioner myself, I would be interested in that because we use frankincense a lot with cancer patients.
Yeah.
So that would be helpful. There's another very good question here from a practitioner. Are there any contraindications for Parkinson's disease where the person is using an electrostimulation device implanted into the brain and also pacemaker?
Yes. Whenever you apply any type of electrical current into the body, there are certain precautions or disclaimers that you shouldn't use it on certain types of patients. And that is basically patients that have any type of pacemaker, patients that have any type of electrical implanted device, any patient that has metal implants, pregnant women, and epileptic patients with epilepsy.
What about amalgam fillings, Mike?
Well, I'm just talking about these are the 5 that basically every energetic device says don't run electrical current into people with these. If you've got amalgams and metal in your mouth or implanted teeth, then you're gonna run whatever electrical frequencies are going to run through the metal first. It's going to be attracted to the metal, and it may cause some sort of sensation. So you might have to be careful. But the beauty about the Healy is that you don't have to run the microcurrent into the body when you use the resonance unit, because you're transmitting it radially as a radionic treatment specifically into their energy field without any electrical attachments.
Yeah.
So that's
a yes for using the resonance for those conditions, but not any of the other devices where they're directly connected to the machine electrically.
That's correct. You
might be able to. That's a really good distinction between the resonance and all the other types.
Correct.
Thank you, Mike. I've got 2 other good questions here. 3 questions. Copies of this recording, can people get this afterwards emailed to them?
Yes, we can. We will provide the recording for those.
Thank you very much. It's a very, very good, very detailed. I love the graphics, Michael. You've explained it really well, very, very well. Now, another person's asked, can the frequencies be used through a Healy Gold, selected frequencies you pick? Can that be done through the Healy Gold or not? The lower level one.
All of the 3 units that are below the resonance unit, they operate on a menu-based app. So you have all of the programs available for that particular device. So the Gold device has got the least number of programs. The Holistic Health has a more, and then Holistic Health Plus has all of the programs, but they're all based on a menu selection. So you basically have to decide what program I want to run off the menu. And so that doesn't really allow you to add or change anything in the system.
That would be on the resonance device, wouldn't it?
That's right. Yeah. You can imprint you can imprint anything into the resonance device.
Right. The last question was, is it okay to use during pregnancy?
Well, that was one of the 5. That's one of the 5 that we mentioned before, that basically no one does research on pregnant women, so nobody really knows. But it's an important phase of any type of human's development, and I would be using the resonance for sure. I wouldn't be running the current. In fact,
Yeah. I would certainly have no problem with it.
Yeah, I would use more the resonance unit.
Now, another question, can you use the resonance device for treating more than one person at a time?
The resonance unit treats one person at a time, but you can have as many people on your client list as you want. So it's an unlimited amount of potential clients that you could treat remotely, but you can only treat them one at a time.
But you could treat multiple people with the same frequency?
No.
So one person at a time.
See, one person, you would do a scan, you would see, okay, these are the problems. You would then transmit those back to that person. When it's finished, you'd have to then click the other person, the next client, and repeat the same thing.
Yeah. So what that person's requesting is probably something that the time weaver would do.
Yes, the
practitioner.
The practitioner units can treat 100 people at once. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's great. Any other questions, folks? I think I've answered all of them, or I've put all another one. When using the programs with leads, when you're using a unit with leads, can you say why the pulse changes from white to black?
Okay, so that's again a common question, in that when the connection, whatever you connect up the leads to your body, whether it's the wrist straps or an electrode or the ear clips, but it's primarily with the wrist straps or the electrodes, you have to have a certain amount of moisture. And when you don't have enough moisture to make contact, the electrical penetration of the resonance frequencies doesn't happen. And so on the monitor, it will show up as black, which is basically saying you need to put more moisture under the leads to make the electrical conductivity more effective. And then once you do that, it will turn to white, saying, okay, it's all good now.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not getting benefits. Yeah.
So question from me, where to from now? People that want. Did you hear that, Mike?
It's lagging a bit, Dave, but where
okay, so last question for those that want to get a device, particularly those in New Zealand who want to take advantage of the promotion that finishes on July the 15th, how do they get a unit?
All right, well, basically the person that referred you to this particular webinar is the person you need to talk to. The person that sent you the link, that who asked you or invited you to attend this seminar or this webinar, that person will be able to provide you with a link, which will then allow you to become a Healy member or partner. And then you can order your own device through your new registration account. But you need to be able to open up the account first. You need to have the friend who invited you to give you their link. And that way you can be together, working together in that business together. And because it's working on a social networking platform where people educate and help each other. And so you need to have the link of your sponsor or your friend to open up an account to place an order. For people in New Zealand, they've got the opportunities of getting a major reduction in price, like over $1,000 reduction off the price of a resonance unit. So it's an incredible opportunity. It only goes for a few more days, so you need to take action pretty quick. And for everyone else that's not in New Zealand, then you simply just have to bite the bullet and evaluate that the need for this particular treatment device is worth anything. Basically, it's worth any dollar value that you have to pay for. It's a matter of beg, borrow, and steal the money to get a device, because
Right.
you will never look back on, and you'll be thankful from the day that you bought it. There is also a 14-day money-back guarantee. After your device arrives, you have 14 days to make up your mind. And if you do decide for whatever reason that you don't want it, you can send it back and get a full refund.
Right. And we need to be upfront, Michael. There is a delay in getting the units because of the oversubscription to the US market. Can you just address that, please?
Yeah, look, we were told recently that it could take up to a month in order to get devices out, but that was primarily due to a lack of supply of the wristbands. And they've now realized that they can't just keep holding back the devices because of the lack of wristbands. So they've decided to send out the units without the wristbands, because you can use the device. Obviously, you can use the resonance device without anything. And the other devices, you can use electrodes and e-clips. So you can still treat yourself without the wristbands, and they'll send the wristbands free of charge as a back order delivery to you when they come into stock. So
Right.
I'm expecting that because of this shift in their decision, that the supply issue may not be as bad as what we thought it was. It might only take a couple of weeks because of this shift. But, you know,
Right.
we don't know for sure, but that's a significant change in their policy, put it that way.
Great. Well, that's really good to know.
Yeah.
So any other questions, folks? Otherwise, please refer to the person who invited you to this webinar if you don't have a device and you want one. If you're in New Zealand and you want to take advantage of the promotional offer, please get in touch with me, David Holden, on david@hhc.nz. That's david@hhc.nz. Or you can find me on WhatsApp, just David Holden, and I will type it in. Yeah, thank you, Susie. That's pretty much all I've got to say. If we could get the copies sent out, Michael, that would be really good. I know a lot of people got a lot of good information in there, so that would be really helpful. And Michael, I'm not sure, because I haven't hosted one of these meetings before, how to type in my email address. Can you do that? Because a few people have asked for it as well.
Into the chat.
Yeah, into the chat. It's not coming up on my screen for some reason. I don't know why. If you just put in email address for everyone so they've got it if they want.
Okay, just to tell me your email address, I'll try typing it in.
David at
Yep.
hhc.nz.
Well, that's nice and simple.
Just holdenhealthcare.nz. Yep. And we're 2 hours ahead of you in Australia, but I will be coordinating orders for people that want them in New Zealand. And Glenn Gillard's group as well. I think Glenn's no longer on the line, but Glenn Gillard's group, if you want to know more, contact Glenn and he'll put you in touch with me.
Yep, hang on a minute. I'll just paste it again. And
David at hhc.nz. There you go, Michael. It's gone out. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, folks. Look, the other thing is that for people to stay plugged into the educational process, because once they get their units, they need to know how to use them. So it's important to stay plugged into the training and educational services that I'm providing for people. That's available through our Australian Healy WhatsApp group. So I'll also attach that in an email so that everyone can basically ask the person that invited them that they can become a member of that particular group. Because once you become a member in there, you've got access to all the educational materials and tools that we've generated through over the last 5 months. So we'll make the, so it's called the Australian Healy Group, and that'll be a way of keeping people plugged into their ongoing education of how to use the Healy and energy medicine in general. So
Yeah, can I add to that, Michael? I've been following that Australian Healy WhatsApp group, and Michael and Hong give of their time freely. They give really good information on that app, so on the WhatsApp group, so it's worth joining. One other question here, Michael, can a sponsor be international?
yes, anyone can open up and be involved in Healy. The opening up an account, however, will only be allowed if you are in a country where the Healy has already been released. So, for instance, if you're in South Africa or Canada, then they haven't had the Healy launch yet. So therefore, when you type in your account to open up your address and to to register your account, they won't allow you to do it until such time as they do a launch in that country. So what that means is that for those poor people, they need to find somebody in a country that does allow Healys and to work with that friend or their family in order to get access if they want to get one earlier.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions, folks? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up because we've gone for 90 minutes and that was our upper limit. We didn't want to go on for too long. Any other questions? Otherwise, you can go on to the WhatsApp Australian Healy group and you can ask questions there, or you can contact Michael or myself and we'll get the answers to you in a timely fashion when we can.
All right. Well, that's been great. Thank you very much, Dave, and for creating this access for the presentation. And now we can just look back and see how many people's lives can be transformed with this
Precisely.
amazing technology. So thanks for everyone.
Thank you, Michael, for simplifying it with your wisdom, and love what you've done. Great presentation. I'll personally be showing that to a lot of people.
Thank you, guys. Bless you. Take care.
Bye all.